Did you know that honesty has wrecked more marriages, dissolved more progress, and ended more careers than laziness ever could? The most respected lie you believe about yourself sounds responsible, mature, and dangerously self-aware. I'm just being honest with how I feel. That sentence sounds clean. It sounds like something a grounded, emotionally intelligent adult would say. It doesn't sound reckless or impulsive. It sounds like growth. But that's exactly why it's dangerous. Here's the brutal truth. Emotions are terrible at timing. They don't care about your 5-year plan or your reputation. They want one thing, and it's immediate relief. If your life feels like it keeps stalling, it's not really because you lack talent. It's because you let a 5-minute chemical control your 5-year trajectory. Honesty works slowly, but unfortunately, we live in a culture that fetishizes emotional honesty. And what did I just say about emotions? They crave immediate results. We've been sold a brand of pop psychology that suggests emotional control is the same thing as suppression. We're told that if you don't act on what you feel the second you feel it, you're being fake. We're told that delaying a response means that you're bottling things up. We react fast, we send the text, we quit the job, we say the cutting line that we can never take back. We change the direction of an entire company because of a bad vibe on a Tuesday. We burn the bridge while we're still standing in the middle of it, and afterward, we shrug and say, well, that's just how I felt, as if the feeling justifies the wreckage. You wouldn't steer a ship based on a 5-minute squall, yet you're steering your entire life based on a mood that'll be gone by dinner. Most people think anger's holding them back, sadness is holding them back, their fear is holding them back. The villain is actually emotional urgency. Urgency is the belief that if you feel something strongly, you must act on it quickly. It's the voice that says, if you don't say this now, you are a coward. Urgency feels like self-respect, but it's actually a systematic destroyer of consistency, reputation, and self-trust. It collapses the gap between feeling and action, and that gap is the only place where human judgment lives. When it disappears, you don't choose your life, you react to it. And while we're on the topic, emotional urgency survives because it masquerades as responsibility. It uses the language of intuition to get what it wants. I need to speak my truth, or I'm just listening to my gut. Your gut is often just your anxiety with a better marketing department. Emotion evolved to signal importance, not timing, bro. It's a smoke alarm, not a calendar. If you treat the alarm like instructions, you'll end up throwing the whole fucking house away because the toast burned. You're using prehistoric hardware to navigate a digital landscape where the urgency button is stuck in the on position. Honestly, can't really do anything about it, bud, because that's how we've been trained, man. It's just what's going on. But yeah, that's how I react. That's how you react. That's how Stacy down the street reacts. When you react immediately, the way you've been trained to, your brain learns a dangerous lesson. That urgency does work. You feel a spike of discomfort, anger, shame, or even boredom. You act fast, you snap, you scroll, you quit. The discomfort drops because the situation changed. That tiny drop in tension acts as a reward, and your brain thinks, when we feel bad, we should do something erratic immediately. The brain repeats the pattern. Next time the feeling hits harder and the delay gets shorter. You don't become more in touch with yourself, you become more volatile. Your behavior becomes a series of escape hatches to avoid feeling anything for more than 60 seconds. And this really isn't a personality flaw, it's a learned shortcut. You become a person whose behavior depends entirely on how much sleep you got or the last 3 things you ate. You're no longer steering what you do, you're just bracing for the next wave of life. On the inside, it feels raw, it feels honest. But from the outside, you look like a liability. High-level opportunities do not flow to people who might blow up the operation because they had a bad Thursday. Yeah, over time, that emotional urgency, it'll really diminish the view that other people have of you. It'll take away the respect, and it'll replace it with something I like to call disgust. I'm not even trying to call you out, I'm pointing out what I've noticed in my own life. There's been a couple times I sent text messages because of emotional urgency, and it really bit me in the ass. There's been times I've spent hours just picking a font for a project. I've carried silent resentment disguised as maturity while waiting for others to read my mind. I've bought a new course and a new tool every time work gets hard to avoid the discomfort of being a beginner. Emotional urgency can drive you mad. I've experienced it, and this video serves one purpose, so you can break out of that cycle. Tonaruk here. And I know this so well because the first calendar that I ever bought for myself ended up being 80% apology calls to people I snapped at while I was just being honest. I literally wrote down when to call people and to apologize. I get it, it sounds dumb, but emotional urgency took over my mindset at that time. I spent time sending just checking in texts, hey my bad voicemails, and that one specific kind of message that starts with, I didn't mean it like that, even though I absolutely meant it like that in the moment. You don't even remember the point you were trying to make, you just remember the aftermath. I lost months of momentum because I decided to pivot my entire business on a random Tuesday when I felt uninspired. Not because the strategy was wrong, but because I couldn't tolerate feeling bored or uncertain for just one afternoon. I called it listening to my gut. It wasn't my gut, it was discomfort with a microphone. And the worst part is, it didn't look like sabotage. It looked like maturity. It looked like discernment. It looked like me taking control. Meanwhile, it was just emotional urgency driving the car with both hands on the wheel, and me sitting in the passenger seat nodding like I was involved. I've rewritten plans at midnight because I felt convinced my life was off. I've sent messages I should have saved as drafts because I wanted relief more than I wanted outcomes. I've burned a whole week because I decided the vibe was wrong, the timing was wrong, the world was wrong, and somehow I was the only honest person in the room. So when I say this stuff, I'm not talking from theory. I'm talking from receipts. I'm talking from the kind of embarrassment that only comes after you watch the pattern repeat 3 times and still try to call it growth. One thing people like to say when you are being emotionally urgent is don't react. That doesn't mean swallowing your soul. Emotion is a wave, and if you don't ride it into a wall, it peaks and decays. Urgency is temporary, and it's not a command. And waiting is not repression, it's intelligence gathering. Mastery is saying, I feel this, but I'm not acting until Tuesday. Instead of letting emotional urgency take control. Most people don't act fast because they're honest, they act fast because they're uncomfortable. And that distinction matters because one sounds virtuous, while the other one sounds weak. And emotional urgency survives entirely on that confusion. People pleasing is not kindness. It's actually just acting fast to stop the discomfort of someone being disappointed in you. You don't say yes because you agree. You say yes because sitting with their disapproval for even 10 minutes, it feels unbearable. So you relieve the tension immediately and call it being easy. Quitting isn't clarity either. It's acting fast to escape the humiliation of being bad at something longer than you expected. The discomfort isn't failure, it's exposure. It's the realization that progress requires you to be visibly incompetent for a while. So when you quit, instead of actually processing what quitting is, you go ahead and leave early, you label it alignment with your plans, and then you pretend that it was such a strategic decision instead of an emotional one. Because why would it be emotional? That's not mature. And lastly, snapping is not assertiveness. It's acting fast to move pain out of your body and into someone else. You don't want resolution, you want the sensation to stop. So you offload it. You call it honesty, but I call it volatility. None of this is bravery, it's avoidance with better branding. It's emotional urgency. That's what fuels it. Speed feels powerful because it creates movement. Movement feels like control, but movement without direction isn't courage, it's panic. You're not advancing, you're just escaping the moment you don't want to be in. And here's the uncomfortable part. The faster that you act, the more that you train yourself to fear stillness. You teach your nervous system that discomfort is dangerous, and it must be eliminated immediately. Over time, you lose the ability to sit with anything unresolved, conversations, decisions, projects, even your own thoughts. So when you tell yourself you're being decisive, what you're really doing is shrinking your tolerance window. You're becoming dependent on action the same way other people become dependent on distraction. Speed isn't courage. Courage is staying present when your body is screaming for you to run. And every time you trade your future for 10 seconds of relief, you reinforce the habit that keeps you exactly where you are. That's not strength, that's a loser's trade. The skill is delay. It isn't willpower. Delay just moves the action to a different time slot. It lets the feeling talk without letting it drive. And bud, I already know you know where this applies. You just don't like the answer. This is about precision. Never act at the emotional peak. Anger, discouragement, euphoria. If it's true today, it'll be true tomorrow. If it's only true because you're pissed off, then it's a lie. Write the email and save it. Put the phone away and sleep. If this is somehow useful to you, there's a button below. You know what it does. I'm moving on. When emotion runs timing, the cost compounds. You lose people because you spoke your truth with a jagged edge. You quit before the breakthrough because you weren't feeling it. We build cleanup narratives like protecting my peace to hide the fact that we slammed the door because we couldn't sit with the discomfort for 10 more minutes. You chose relief over results, and this is how high agency people become low impact. They are paralyzed by their own psychological spikes. When emotion stops deciding time, excuses disappear. Not gradually, not gently, they vanish all at once. You can't blame motivation anymore because motivation was never the constraint. You can't blame your mood because the work still exists whether you feel like doing it or not, pal. You can't blame burnout because burnout turns out to be a pattern of poor timing, not a mysterious force that struck at random. What's left is just you and the clock, and that's deeply uncomfortable because the failure stops feeling meaningful, it stops feeling psychological or spiritual. There's no story to hide inside, no narrative about alignment, readiness, or no needing more time. The reason something didn't get done is embarrassingly plain. You didn't do it when it was available to be done. Failure becomes mechanical, and I know it's a hard truth. It's not about who you are, it's not about how you feel, it's about when you acted, or when you didn't. That's why most people resist this phase. Mechanical failure offers no emotional insulation. You can't dramatize it. You can't intellectualize it. You can't outsource responsibility to your internal state. The math is simple, and it's indifferent. You either showed up when the window was open or you didn't. And once you see that, you lose the ability to romanticize inconsistency. You can't tell yourself you're complex or misunderstood. You're just early, late, or absent. The scoreboard doesn't care what your nervous system was doing that day. True consistency isn't born from discipline or inspiration. It's born when you stop letting your internal weather dictate your schedule. When you stop being a passenger to your moods and start treating time like the fixed resource it is. It's not hostile, it's not forgiving, just moving forward whether you're ready or not is what you gotta do. Emotion is just terrible at scheduling. It shows up early, late, or all at once, with no regard for what the moment actually requires. It doesn't make it useless, it makes it unreliable as a decision maker. So don't silence it and don't pretend it isn't there. Just stop treating it like an authority. Let it speak. Take the information, and then wait, because the emotion surges and fades. The clock keeps moving in one direction. Opportunities decay. Windows close. Momentum compounds quietly, and unfortunately, no matter how justified you feel in the moment, the math does not care about how you feel.